Hello. Happy International Women's Day. Woo! What a great response. Hi, I'm Erin Hewitson. I'm the Senior Manager of Individual Giving here at TIFF, and I am absolutely honored to welcome you to our TIFF Transforms International Women's Day panel. So today is a day of celebration, and I couldn't think of a better way to kick things off than by celebrating all of you, our community of members and donors, because quite simply, you make what we do possible. So thank you. I'd also like to give a shout out to our allies from WIFT Toronto. WIFT is a great organization committed to the development of women in the screen-based industries, and a special shout out to our friends at RBC Foundation, many of whom are here with us tonight, for making an incredible impact through the RBC Female Creator Initiative, which kicked off last year and launched a Female Producer Accelerator program, supports all the women in our filmmaker lab, and provided over 50 young filmmakers last year access completely for free to TIFF industry and education opportunities. So, today, International Women's Day marks a global day of celebrating the achievements of women, but as important, or if not more, it's a reminder that we need to call to action and accelerate the quest for gender parity all year long. Here at TIFF, we're so aware of how much work still has to be done to achieve this. Did you know that of the 250 top-grossing films last year, only 8% were directed by women? Numbers like this need to change. That's why we're so committed to growing the momentum of Share Her Journey, our 5-year, $3 million campaign to provide more opportunities for women in front of and behind the camera. So working on this campaign has been truly a professional and personal highlight of mine, and I'm delighted to share that to date, over 32,000 people have taken action to support women in film because of the campaign. We've raised $2.2 million, and most of all, the thing that we're proud of most is the impact of all of this. So 126 women have directly benefited from Share Her Journey, accessing mentorship, workshops, skills development, networking opportunities, and the best part of all of this, we're just getting started. So we're in year 3. We still have 3, we can count it 3 years to go. So if you haven't already joined us, please visit shareherjourney.org. You can sign up. We'll send you information. You'll get invited to great events like this. And now for tonight. So we are all in for a very special evening with our panel of extremely talented interdisciplinary artists. We'll hear about their experiences, their outlook on the ever-evolving creative landscape, and what they believe the artistic future of female inclusion looks like. So I'm delighted to introduce our moderator for tonight's panel. Amanda Parris writes a weekly column for CBC Arts, hosts 3 CBC television series, and is the radio host of Marvin's Room on CBC Music, which actually I honestly would be listening to if I wasn't here right now, because it's on right now. And she also writes for The Stage and Screen, is the co-founder of the award-winning education organization Lost Lyrics, and she's worked with the Remix Project and the Manifesto Festival. So please join me in welcoming Amanda.
So weird to see your face so big up there. Oh my God. Hi, everyone. Happy IWD. So very excited to be here, and I am going to begin welcoming our guests. So Maria Kamar is an artist and author of the book Trust No Auntie, a comical survival guide to dealing with overbearing South Asian aunties. She also makes amazing clothing. I have one of her jackets. Please welcome Maria to the stage. See, I told you. Amazing. 6-time Stylist DJ Award winner, official We Day Tour DJ, and VIP DJ for Beyonce's Formation World Tour in Toronto and Detroit. DJ Lissa Monét is a one-of-a-kind talent. Lissa is a captivating tastemaker, has worked as urban lifestyle marketing consultant for Sony Music Canada, and is the co-founder of Lux Life Sound, a boutique DJ service that specializes in booking and prioritizing female DJ talent at corporate beauty, lifestyle, fashion, and private events across Canada and the US. Please welcome DJ Lissa Monét. Jessica Karuhanga is an artist based in Toronto, Canada. She has presented her work at Goldsmiths London, the Art Museum at University of Toronto, and on-site gallery at OCAD University Toronto. She's given lectures. I highly encourage you to do a deep dive through her Vimeo because that's what I did earlier today. Please welcome Jessica to the stage. I couldn't say University of Toronto because I was attended there for so long that I think I'm still traumatized. Okay. Sasha Leigh Henry is a Toronto-based writer, director, and producer, and alumni of POV 3rd Street 2013. She most recently wrote and directed the film Bitches Love Brunch. You guys should watch it. I watched it. It's dope. Executive produced by Randall Okita and Tanya Thompson, and starring 2018 Prism Prize Lipset Award winner Karina Evans. It's played in festivals all over the world. Please welcome Sasha Leigh Henry to the stage. Okay, welcome, guys. So I wanted to start off with something that I've been thinking about. I got one of these agendas that Carolyn Purcell, I don't know how many of you guys know her. She creates these really beautiful agendas. They're very detailed. It kind of gave me anxiety when I first got it, but it's amazing. And one of the things that the agenda asks you is, how do you celebrate your accomplishments? And when I got to it, I literally sat there and stared into space for 3 minutes, and finally I had to resign myself to the fact that I don't. Like, when you have your little accomplishments, maybe I'll, post it on Instagram and be like, oh, so many people like it, yay. But that's not actually celebrating your accomplishments. So you guys are very accomplished people, and I wanted to ask you that question to start off this evening. How do you celebrate your accomplishments? And anyone can go.
I think I'm in the same boat as you. I don't. It's one of those things where, like you said, I just post what I do on Instagram, and I guess you can. I guess you can call that celebrating your accomplishment. But also, I feel like it's my marketing too. I don't know. It's like, guys, I can do this really well. Please book me. Right. Exactly. But I'm right in the same boat as you. I don't know that I think about it.
Yeah. I don't know that I think about it either. I don't know, I tend to be kind of shy or self-effacing about that kind of stuff. And so I feel like it's my friends. I have an amazing, my chosen fam that are always rooting for me and sharing stuff. I will post it to Instagram, and you might get a lot of likes, and that's the only social media I have because social media causes me way too much anxiety.
Don't blame you.
So yeah, that's kind of, I think celebratory is more like a one-on-one kind of exchange where someone's like, I'm proud of you, and you return that effect back, for me anyway.
I would say the same. I tell friends. I recently learned that because I don't think I take the time to celebrate it as much as I should. So I tell friends, and then they get excited, and then I'm like, right? We did it, it's a big deal, right? So, tell friends as quickly as possible, and then ideally they gas you up, and then you get really excited about it, and then there you go.
I added to my LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn too.
This is all, I'm under the impression that social media is gonna die someday, and I'm just looking for that backup. So I'm like, okay, let's just secure that backup.
LinkedIn is the
this
backup.
This was good. This might, you know what I mean? I'm always living in constant fear of what if I don't get another gig, freelance life?
Yeah, I semi-regularly update my LinkedIn too.
So this is a panel of super accomplished women, and nearly none of us have a strategy for celebrating ourselves when we accomplish anything. Okay, this is a lesson for all of us. Maybe something to think about. I thought about it, and I still haven't come up with anything. I was hoping you guys would give me some material, but that's fine. Okay. So I have some specific questions to individuals and then some group questions. So Maria, I wanted to ask you, you've been really unapologetic about the fact that your art is for brown people first and foremost, and that the work that you create is a conversation between brown people. But your platform has exploded since the time that you began with that intention. Has it been challenging to keep that intimate conversation that you're trying to have based on the fact that your success has made you more accessible to more people?
That's an amazing question. nothing has changed. That's what I think is very interesting, is that I had a question about, I was doing an interview and somebody asked, sorry, I just like forgot my train of thought. But it was basically like when you're talking to your own audience, kind of how does a conversation, same thing, like how does a conversation change when there's more people involved? And it's like, how do you feel about a community, like finding and cultivating this big community of brown people that are kind of talking about this work? And my answer was, the community was always there. People weren't paying attention. So it doesn't matter if there's, well, it matters to, Instagram obviously, but like it doesn't really matter to me personally if there's 50 people or 50,000 people or 5 million brown people talking about it. The fact is that I know that there's Desi's having these conversations. We're just now having them in the open. And it's a good way for people to learn about our culture beyond butter chicken and yoga. They kind of go, oh, like, what does this word mean? Why would somebody say this to another person? Like, what does kutta mean? And then, they would ask their Indian friends to like translate. And it would start a conversation that's a little bit deeper into like the cultural nuances about how we are. Like we have these little funny things that happen in our culture that people kind of don't hear about often because the media doesn't cover it. But it's getting better, but we still have a long way to go.
Have you ever had to check someone who felt a little too comfortable with your content before? Because I sometimes wonder about that. It's almost like you're unairing our community secrets when you put out art, but you want to be authentic to yourself, right? And so it's this delicate balance. Have you ever had to have that conversation or have that moment?
Like with somebody who's not brown?
Not yet.
No, I think people are very, very careful now. I think we've created an environment where you will get canceled if you step out of line. Like that's just, people are very protective about their communities online now. And that's something that I noticed on Tumblr when I was like 15, but it's now kind of, people have grown up with this and have learned how to, maybe not always learn how to deal with it gracefully, but they know how to keep people in check when somebody kind of says something, and not in a way that you'll get like canceled and blocked or whatever. People will actually take the time to like do some research and let people know like this is why you're wrong and assuming this and blah blah. But nothing serious has happened except for like maybe a white person wearing a bindi at an exhibit.
Okay.
that person had to be like, you got to take that off. I'm sorry. Yeah, just don't do it.
Don't do it. PSA. So you guys I thought it was really interesting when I saw who was invited to be a part of this panel, because I feel like you all are on the cusp of institutions and industries that are changing and that are dealing with changing times. So curators are looking to Instagram to figure out who's the artist that can bring an audience into the museum. The television is trying to figure out how to deal with the digital landscape and what they're going to do there. The music industry is coming to terms with the fact that streaming numbers mean more than album sales. So these are all times that are changing, and that means that there's no one necessarily to follow to figure out what success looks like, right? There's not necessarily examples for any of you guys to follow. You're kind of charting your own path. How do you stay ahead of this constantly changing curve? And that's a question for all of you.
That's a great question. I don't know. I guess I'm always thinking about kind of temporalities. Like right now, I mostly work freelance, and then to kind of the only steady kind of income I have is teaching part-time, and I hop around from different schools. And what I notice is like, if it's not like a monetary value within a capitalist system, it's social capital that like kind of predicates your like value or almost like citizenship in a so-called arts community. So like, I don't know, I've been really grappling with that lately, how, particularly for the universities where I teach art and mentor people, that, it requires my devotion to the system, and yet I'm as disposable as any menial labor. And that's not to diminish menial labor. I grew up with that. I grew up in a working class family. My mom was a school bus driver, and now she's on disability. Like, my whole context from which I grew up in was very precarious. And so I don't take things for granted. And despite all these conditions, I try to always exist in a world where I have agency and I can self-actualize and things are always on my terms, you know? And I don't think that's a position of privilege to do that. It's about like self-worth, you know, because no one else is going to give that to me, so I have to give it to myself. And same when it goes to freelance stuff, like I still get offers for things where, you know, it's like, you should be grateful for this opportunity, or we'll give you this honorarium. And then honorarium could literally be food sometimes. And, you know, I don't need free bagels.
Does not mean food, guys. They're not synonyms. No.
Yeah. So I try to like keep a level head, not let my head get too big, but also like know my worth. It's a tricky balance, though, right?
Well, it's so great that you said that, because the question that I had for you, I read this amazing quote that you had in an interview where you said, and I'm reading the exact quote, "I resist containers or the notion that some institution produced me. You don't get to claim me, especially when you can't hold space for my blackness." Yeah, that's a good quote, man. I had to write it down. I love that you're declaring your separation from spaces that try to claim us, because I personally cannot count how many institutions try to claim ownership over my success and be like, yes, we made her.
Yeah.
Come on, fam. So I kind of want to know, like, where did this self-determination come from, or where did this this strength to sort of state, no, like, this is, I did this. Like, where did that come from? And to give credit where credit is actually due.
Yeah, I love that you framed it that way, because I think about this a lot. As an artist, I try and make sure that my friends and fam are people that occupy all sorts of spaces. So representation matters to me. Like, one of my best friends is a doula, and you know, she's a Colombian queer woman, and she's iconic, and the work she does matters to me on the same level as an artist. And I think a lot about in the art industry, particularly, where there's so much preciousness around individuated authorship. Like, I'm this fucking genius who made this thing, as if you're not existing on the backs of other people's labor or work. No one is an island. And it's funny how that type of like navigating only exists in an art industry. Like, in science, you would never fucking do that. Like, you know that you're problem solving and it's like built on other forms of knowledge. And so I always like honor like all my precedents. And like, no one gave permission except myself. And I feel like I learned a lot of self-actualization from both my parents. You know, my father is kind of like a rags to riches story. Came here as a refugee, and he's like very effeminate. Like, I feel like I gained a lot of my femme energy from my father, actually. And then my mother, you know, is someone that struggles with like mental health. And I feel like she's someone that, against all odds, like self-articulated. So that's like the base precedent. And then there's my sisters, who are like my two best friends in the world. One of my sisters is here right now. So permission, it's sometimes like encouragement or affirmation from people. Like, when I was doing my master's, which was more like a residency, like, I was having people actively being, you know, racist, trying to alienate me during that time, just facts. But this Indigenous artist, Rebecca Belmore, was an artist in residence. She's iconic, an Anishinaabe artist, and she was someone that just kind of took me under her wing, encouraged me to like stay true to myself. And there was one time where I was being like, kind of, this instructor was kind of making fun of my work, and she kind of drew analogies to her own experience. I was making these drums from these plastic buckets, and she was like, it reminds me of like oil drums from the reserve. And so we drew analogies to our own like kind of geopolitical conditions, and she affirmed me in that moment. So I wouldn't be nothing without the support of figures like her and my family. And my family and people in the canon are on the same level, I should also like state.
I love that. I love that you can give credit in such a wide and disparate way and show all the connections between all of these spaces that people wouldn't normally draw threads between. So thank you. Lissa, you've talked about the challenge of being a female DJ in a male-dominated industry. And because it's International Women's Day, and because we have a stage and microphones and a camera, and because the tides are changing, if you could give a message to the gatekeepers of your industry right now about what you know is coming or what you want to come in the next few years, what would your message be? Because you're always asked to talk about what's been going on. I kind of
Right.
want to know what you want to see going on and how you would phrase it to those gatekeepers.
Just let us do our thing. You know, I can only speak from obviously the music industry side. It's so protected, especially with the major labels, because of that huge hit that they had with iTunes and streaming, and the fact that, you know, a lot more artists are becoming independent. They want to protect.
So that made them more protective.
Yes. And, you know, someone like me, I don't know if you guys know, I also do urban marketing consulting for Sony Music Canada. So when I sit in these meetings and we have conversations about artists and their projects and, you know, what we see to market that artist, it's like the ideas will come to the table and then it's like, well, this is what we've done in the past, so let's just stick with what we know. And it's like, well, no. Like, for example, working Solange and worked seat at the table. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but the project manager happened to be, you know, a white woman. And I'm trying to explain to them that this is such an important album for Black women and for the Black community. And these are the things that we should be doing in order to support that album. And it's like, oh, well, let's just give away a few CDs. Because that's what's worked.
And also CDs.
Right.
What year is
That's
this?
another thing too. So it's like you've asked me to come and have a conversation about something because you believe that I know what I know about that particular subject, but yet you still want to push me to the side when I bring my ideas to the table. And then when we do go with what has been working, there's no return on investment, or there's no results. And it's like, well, I mean, if you had just listened to what I had said, or, you know, just taken my lead or taken my suggestion, we'd probably have, you know, higher numbers or, you know, higher streaming numbers or what have you. So it's a pretty simple message. It's just let us do our thing, you know, and trust that, you know, the ideas and the suggestions that we bring to the table is a reflection of our lives and is a reflection of what we've experienced, and, you know, just trust that.
And also respecting the fact that you're an expert. You've been doing this from time. Like, this is an expert opinion giving you some advice right now, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying it for you if you don't want to say it.
Thanks, girl.
So all of you are here in Canada. All of you work in industries where you might have an easier chance or more chances outside of Canada. And I want to know why you have decided to stay in Canada. Sasha, I'll start with you.
Well, I think I've decided to stay in Canada because it's where I can legally make money. So that's like
Very pragmatic, yes.
That's a big
True.
one. But also, I think this is where I've built the community and the network, and it's, I think, especially in the film industry, that's really, really hard to try and duplicate, or probably in any kind of artistic industry, once you start having the people you can really rely on, because the opportunities can come so few and far between, or when they do come, there is like real money on the line, and you really just you don't get as many opportunities. The opportunities to practice you create for yourself. And so when you do have that community that has seen you through the practice, that has seen you through the paid job, and like, you know, you have that shorthand with them, it becomes valuable in a way that like supersedes a lot of things, I think, when you're making art. And so that's one of the number one reasons that I stay in Canada. Yeah.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah, definitely the legal thing. And also, I mean, I've definitely danced around the idea of that. Like, I remember when I was done grad school for a minute, my mom's like, just like live with me for free and like save money and then move to New York. And I was like, I don't know if I can live with you for that long. But like it just like didn't work out. That like wasn't an option actually. Like my mom is like a hopeless romantic, so I feel like she thought the idea was great. So I do that, and also the community matters. I feel like as I'm getting older, I mean, I've always been like a bit of a lone wolf. I travel a lot on my own, and I've always felt comfortable doing that. I think it has a lot to do with being the firstborn, and my sisters came around a little bit later in life, so I was always kind of left to my own devices. My parents had confidence in me just kind of doing my own thing. Like I was allowed to walk to my best friend's house when I was 4.
This was not Toronto, though.
No, this is not Toronto. This is like where my grandmother lived, like to contextualize.
Everyone's like, wait, where in Toronto was
in
this?
Toronto, my parents are not like negligent.
I didn't think they were. I just wanted to make sure people understood because they're like, what?
I turned out all right. So yeah, I have a community here. I think that's really important to me. And I do have a community there. And I will say that social media, we were talking earlier, Tumblr, Facebook, back when I was on it or used it more. When I was looking for ways to self-articulate, like in my undergrad, master's, even before that, that's where I would find a lot of like Black artists, because I wasn't living in Toronto. I didn't really know who, people like, I don't know, Deanna Bowen or Andrew Fatona or any of these important Black cultural producers were. So like I would just find people online. And what was cool is I remember like making a trip to New York when I was really young and meeting people like Clifford Owens, Tamika Norris, Jacoby Solderwhite, who did the animation in Solange's newest visual album or whatever, and people were totally cool, like, oh yeah, I like know you from like online. So like it's like people outside kind of knew me first. And what I was saying, the arts industry is that sometimes in visual arts you have to be validated elsewhere, especially as a marginalized artist, in order to get legitimized here. You working with like for Beyonce is like, okay, like, well, and
I think that's true across the board.
And it's true. It's true in every industry. And so I also keep that in mind too, about like back to the social capital like thing. Is just like I want to have real honorable relationships. So like when I always lay low, and when I'm in the studio and germinate, and then I'll pop up and have a show, and then I'll disappear because I'm really don't like being in those social kind of conducts. I find it very disingenuous. But the amount of people that would be like, I was like in a show of Nick Cave and like all these like amazing big deal artists, and people are like, oh my God, Jessica, like so nice to meet you. And I'm kind of like, I've been around. So it's like a bittersweet relationship with Toronto. It's like a marriage where we contemplate divorce every once in a while.
Good way to describe it, yeah. Lissa?
I stay here for the free healthcare, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that too.
That's so important.
It's
important. Really important.
Especially being a freelancer and being self-employed,
that's
you
real, man.
Pretty much have to pay for your own dental and your eye, and all that good stuff. So could you imagine living somewhere else and not having, that security? For me, it's pretty much the same thing. Toronto, I have a love-hate relationship, but it's one of those things where I love it just a little bit more than I hate it. It's I have these conversations all the time with friends, and for me, I see Toronto as a glass ceiling city where you can only go so far, and then after that, you have to kind of turn to outside worlds to either expand your reach or gain more, whether it's followers or fans or listeners or what have you. But in my line of work, I do a lot of traveling, and for me, when I travel, I like to see how other people are living and how other people are how other people are working in the cities that they live in. And to be honest with you, it's all the same. You go to New York and it's the same struggle. You go to LA, it's the same struggle. You go to Miami, it's the same struggle. Chicago, same struggle. And it's like, well, if I'm comfortable here, why would I uproot myself and
no healthcare?
Right, to no healthcare and have to, struggle twice as much as, my friends in different cities. At the end of the day, Toronto's a great place to live. It's super diverse. We don't have a weird president.
Yet. Or maybe we do. I don't know. Okay, that's stop. I work at the city.
As I digress. But it's one of those cities where it's like if I want to, it's a great. If I want to raise kids, I'd rather raise kids here than, you know, anywhere else, particularly the U.S. Yeah.
Just became about one other country now.
Yeah.
Out of the entire planet, just the U.S. I don't want to be there.
Go ahead, Maria.
I love Toronto. I moved here when I was 19, and I lived in Davisville, which is a great neighborhood next to the giant cemetery before weed was legal. It's great. That's a great, there's like deers and stuff like in that cemetery. Like there's wildlife going on. Like you guys should visit. But I love Toronto. I like, you know, I like that growing up here, it was very much like the screw face capital. And like everybody hates on each other. And it's like, but when you do find the people that really do their homework and are really about the craft, they're amazing people.
Yeah.
And because Toronto is so small, you feel like you trust people a little bit easier. Sometimes it breaks your heart, but when it doesn't, it's amazing. Like I've made some really amazing, you know, I've met some really amazing people that have helped me through some tough times in starting my own business, and they became very close friends very fast because they were going through the same thing. And so, you know, I think going to, you know, again, the US or the UK or even, you know, anywhere else in the world, I think there's so much. First of all, there's so many people. Like Canada has like, what, 34 million people, you know? It's just like, it's just smaller here. And so it's easier to navigate a little bit where you kind of, even if you are cutting off certain things like, well, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. You have that option. You can make it really fast. Whereas, let's say you're living in New York, there's so many people, there's so many things that you can be doing. You kind of get lost in the crowd. I think we're lucky to be in Toronto at a time where it's like just getting bigger, you know, like it's kind of getting up there, but we still have the option to be like, okay, cool, I can cozy up with this, you know. I mean, it gets cliquey sometimes, but I think my point is more about like building those relationships in business. It's very easy to do that here. Because you can see who's winning, who's succeeding in their business, and who's kind of there in a position of that you're able to like collaborate. Whereas a lot of people just kind of talk and they don't pull through. And I've always been that student in the groups where, you know, you get put into a group of 4 in college and you're the only one doing your homework, and then you show up for the presentation. It's like, it should have been.
So it's like here you're able to find that team
exactly.
a little bit easier.
Yeah, you can build that team a little bit easier. I just love Toronto for that, and the healthcare and the legal reasons, and the president and stuff. Yeah.
So this question is for Sasha, and it's kind of connected to this conversation that we're having. I mean, it's such an exciting time to see Black creators in film and television south of the border and what they're doing. And I actually asked this exact question to Floyd Kane, who's the creator and showrunner of a new show called Digstown, which is the first primetime show with a Black female solo lead that premiered in Canada. It's called Digstown on CBC. And so I was asking him, you know, it's such an exciting time. Do you think that is also, has that filtered into Canada as well too? Is it an exciting time for Black creators in film and television? And his response, he said, you know, a few people have asked me that, and I always go back to this. When Scandal was doing amazingly well, like 10 million an episode, and around season 2 or 3, City TV decided to stop airing it. And he said, you know, it was doing so amazingly well, but maybe it doesn't translate here. Is there he's like, I don't know if the audience here is ready for our stories. I hope they are, but I'm not sure. So I wanted to ask you as a filmmaker, as a person who's creating stories for the screen, how do you feel about the audience here? And do you think that it's possible to have that same type of momentum and space of creation that's happening down like south of the border here?
I think that we totally have the audience here. I think it just doesn't translate in the same numbers that it does for TV. Like most of the people that would watch Scandal are in my age demographic, and I haven't had cable in a really long time. It's just a fact of the matter of it. Like when I'm watching Scandal, I'm either watching it through streaming or online. And so City TV might not see those numbers in the same way, but they're also not looking in all the places that people are watching things. Because I think there's definitely the audience here. Like if that's the first one, it's definitely not because we didn't want to see anyone that looked like us on the TV. But it's been so long that literally television is phasing out by the time that we're getting these shows. And so that's what I think it's reflecting more so that than it is there not being an audience. And I think it's a little troublesome when like, you know, the likes of City TV start to look at it as if it's an audience thing and not what do we need, how do we need to diversify also how we're making this available to people. Right? They just automatically think like, oh, well, the audience isn't there. And if you look at the demographics of especially Toronto, it's like that isn't true. But where are people watching things? Like, I can't tell you the last time. Yeah, I was visiting my grandma, and that's the last time I saw a TV on. That wasn't like, because even when people have TVs now, they have Roku TVs that are hooked up to Hulu and Amazon Prime and all those things. So they're just not watching cable in the same way. And people are less familiar because of the Hulus and the Netflixes. They're less familiar with going to the like City TV online or the CTV online. You really have to. And I think that example can be seen with like Baroness von Sketch. That show's doing really well, but it's because I think a big part of it is because the sketches can live online. That's how I discovered the show. That's how a lot of people discovered the show. And then once I got it, I was like, oh, I want to see more. But it was because I saw it through like the CBC Shorts sketches shared online. And that's one of the reasons. It's just like, yeah, the people that are that typically drive those kinds of numbers are just not watching TV in the same way. And even when they have them, it's not for cable. And so I think that's more so what I think we definitely have the audience. I'm here. I'll watch it.
And then in terms of, because I got a chance to watch your short and I loved it, I wanted to talk to you a little bit, and we're running a little bit out of time, so this is a quick one, just about creating stories that feel like home, like creating stories that you haven't seen, so the language felt like Toronto, the energy, the women that I saw on the screen felt like Toronto. Can you talk about what your priorities are for the kinds of stories you want to tell?
I mean, I started out just trying to see myself on TV. Like I would see, like in Canada, we get dominated, because we're also an English-speaking country and we're connected to the States, we get dominated with a lot of their media. And a lot of the storylines for Black women too were also like baby mothers, or like they had like some baby mama drama or something like that. And as much as that's a reality of the community, it wasn't my reality. I rarely saw, like not since Girlfriends with Tracy Ellis Ross did I see anyone that was just like walking around and had a job and like didn't know where to get lunch. And when I thought about like actually like we like, and I actually like not really struggled, but I did think about it, just because at the time when we were making it, there was a lot of heavy stuff going on in the States in terms of like, what kind of story can I tell that would adequately represent Black people? But I am a Black person, and this really is my weekend, is I go to brunch and I tell my friends I'm going to bring them, and then I don't really have enough money in my account. And then I hold my breath when they swipe the debit card. Like, it's just what, like, you know, that was my reality. And I just wanted to see that, because I think that can give like as much of a safe space, like just to watch something on TV and laugh, and like that's as useful as making something that is like starkly outlining what some of the issues are. So yeah.
Love that. Yes, please go ahead. So we're gonna open it up for Q&A in a moment, but before we do, I just wanted to ask all of you, again, Carolyn Purcell, clearly I follow her a lot on social media. She put this out as her goal for International Women's Day, to ask everybody, to ask each of you if you could refer and recommend the work of another woman. We have the privilege of being on this platform. Let's use it in another way. Someone that you think that people should know and who you would like to celebrate. Who would it be and why?
I would nominate, she's actually here today, Kelly Fife Marshall.
Bam, bam.
She's a fantastic director and filmmaker, and is making really like visually riveting work that talks a lot about some of the heavier issues in the Black community, and does a good job at it. So check her out. Follow her on social media.
Say her name again.
Kelly Fife Marshall.
Okay,
yeah,
you guys heard it here.
Right there, right there.
I have a couple names. One person I would recommend that you all check out, I'm sure some of you know her, is like Sati Kidane. I hear some fans in the audience. Someone should document this. She's a Leo. She would love this. She's an amazing photographer, has taken some of my best headshots, and she has a calendar that she releases every year called 12 Months of Melanin. That's really amazing. And then I had the opportunity to curate an exhibition of all like Black women, femmes, and non-binary folk. And one of the artists who's really amazing is a friend of mine, Marceline Mandang. She's based in Philly, and she collaborated with a really dear friend of mine who's located in Toronto, Kim Ninkuro, Kim is an amazing, just like thinker, dancer, a fucking amazing dancer, and performance artist as well. And I'm like blessed to have her as a friend. So those are like 3 names, I guess it is, that I would recommend you check them out. Kimnan Kuro, Sechi Kadane, and Marceline Mending.
For me, because in my past life, I wanted to be a hairdresser. I'm totally obsessed with Vivian Kaye, or Kaye. It's spelled Kaye. She's a self-made entrepreneur, runs a website called Kinky Curly Yaki. Which basically sells human hair for women of color. She's basically self-made and has created this, 6-figure business from, I think it was like $1,200 or something like that. She's got an amazing personality on social media and is super open to just providing insight and advice to other women on how to start an online business, not necessarily hair, but she's run a couple of like Shopify workshops and stuff like that. But she's super open, and I enjoy listening to her speak on social media because she's also a single mother and is super optimistic about life, and she's just amazing. And on the music side, there's an artist that I've been like super obsessed with by the name of Nao. I just recently went to see her perform in New York because I missed the Toronto show. There is just something special about her voice, her songwriting skills. Just sonically, her music is absolutely amazing. If that album were vinyl, it would be worn out. She's absolutely amazing, and I believe her Instagram is This Is Nao, Nao. Yep.
I'm really obsessed with everything to do with food. It's something that calms me down when I'm stressed out. During like exam time in college, I used to turn on the Food Network and just let it run and watch Paula Deen just throw a slab of butter and just watch it sizzle and be like, I'm gonna pass this exam. I'm gonna win. So in my usual tradition, I got stressed out one night and started watching the new season of Chef's Table. And there was an episode of this lady named Asma Khan, and she runs a restaurant called the Darjeeling Limited in London. And I went on her page. She doesn't have that many followers, but like, holy crap, this woman is amazing. She moved, it's like the typical immigrant story, you know what I mean? She moved from India to London. She got married to this guy, and she was so lonely. And one time she was riding a bike through the streets, and she was like, she didn't understand English that well. She didn't know anybody. She left her family, friends behind. And one time she was riding her bike. She kept riding and riding and riding. And she smelt this like aroma of parathas, which is like, it's like roti, but like it's deep fried. It's like all this butter. It's amazing. And she smelt it, and she was like, I really want this. And she didn't have the courage to go and knock on that person's door. And so she just started crying. And she was so, and like that moment of like, I get so emotional when I think about that, because that kind of loneliness is something that every immigrant woman, every immigrant mother has faced, my mother included. So it was kind of like what she did essentially was that she went back to India. I'm ruining the episode, but basically it was she went back to India, asked her mom, like, Mom, teach me how to cook, because she was a lawyer. She's like, I don't know how to cook. Please teach me how to cook so I can have something of yours to look, think about when I'm away from you. And so all of her sisters, aunties, mom, everybody taught her how to cook. She came back and she started to cook and started hosting these dinners at her house. And other women just like her started coming to her house to share a meal. And so she started this restaurant with other ladies that were just like her, that felt alone, that were working as nannies or working like these little jobs here and there, just to make friends. And they started this restaurant called Darjeeling Limited, and it's like a crazy good restaurant. They do like home cooked meals, and like it's all these ladies that like look like my mom. It's basically like 5 of my moms in like a restaurant. I was like, this is amazing, and I definitely want to check it out.
Can you say her name again?
Asma Khan, And I think if you look her up on Instagram at Asma Khan London, or Asma Khan Restaurant, but it's in the new season of Chef's Table. There's only 4 episodes, and there's one on her. Go watch it if you want to cry and feel good.
Okay, so now it's up to you guys. I think we have a mic that's circulating, and we have questions.
I really didn't want to be the first guy to ask a question on International Women's Day, but here I am. Thank you so much. What a gift to be able to witness this conversation. I'm wondering if you could speak to how you carve out joy in your art practices.
Well, for me, being a DJ to me, I look at being a DJ as an act of service. And I started DJing at a time before a lot of DJs became celebrities. And, you know, back in the day, the DJ was in the back corner of a room. There was like no lights on that person. And, you know, you just basically played music to serve a purpose or to provide a service, which was to like have people enjoy themselves and to dance. And I still see DJing as that for me. And that to me is like the ultimate joy. Honestly, yeah.
For me, it can be through art. Like I've stepped down a bit, but I do some of my art practice doing performance art. Sometimes it's dance, choreography, and you know, a lot of people have a lot of. It can be very effective, and people often have emotional responses to that, and that can be really intense to sort of take on because you have this responsibility when you're dealing with intense subject matter. I remember one of the first performances I ever did was one that had to do with mourning, specifically what mourning, the incalculability of like grief as a Black subject, especially in times of like state-sanctioned violence against Black bodies. And it became harder and harder to perform that, especially as the audience became more and more mixed, like even wondering what my ethical responsibility is. So sometimes it's for these kind of moments of connection. I never want to be a representation for anyone because I find that there's limitations to that. If anything, you know, to borrow from Laverne Cox's like possibility model, like at best I can be that, but I'm a mess and I'm still growing. That being said, I enjoy mentoring. You know, I'm teaching a lot of youth that are, you know, in their late teens, early 20s. And I am the only like Black faculty member like in my department, and I'm a sessional. Like, so it's like every 12 weeks I have to apply for my job. And it's not even shade, that's just facts. So like, for me, you know, it's not just the Black kids that are coming to me, it's brown kids, it's like Native kids, it's non-binary kids, it's everyone that feels other, that sees like a potential for self-actualization in these spaces, or sees a possibility that they are allowed in these spaces and that they should and they are supposed to be in those places. So for me, that's joy for me. Like anyone being like, I see you. Like I want to be seen by my students just as much as me seeing them. I want it to be an exchange. I want to learn from them. And so like that's like the joyous part about it. I hate the marking. I hate all the bureaucratic stuff. Like I suck at the actual occupation of teaching, but mentoring I'm fabulous at. I love giving free advice.
I carve out joy in my profession usually by talking out ideas with friends and collaborators. Like that's super fun. I think especially at writing or directing, it takes a really long time till you see the finished product. So when you have an idea, like going to your trusted people and talking about it and getting excited, and again having them like hype you up and be like, this is really good, or like just workshopping it is a lot of fun. And I get a lot of joy from like, yeah, just trying to like, I use like, for example, Instagram as like a way to tell a story, or, you know, for lack of a better term, like instant gratification, right? Like it, again, the process can be very long. So if you're trying something, or if there's a joke or a line that you're seeing, if it works, like Instagram can be a place where you can see in the immediate and test it out in the immediate, and also build a community that way. I mean, there's a lot of things I don't like about Instagram, but that one is like a really good one. So yeah.
And lastly, thank you for the question, by the way. I'm kind of like the artist that plays with just making everything as big and extra and glamorous and flashing lights, and let's just throw this samosa beanbag chair here and put some fake turf over here. Like, I like going big, and that makes me feel good about where I am in life to be able to make decisions like that, where somebody gives me, even if they give me a shitty budget, not that it's encouraged, but I'll turn that into gold just because I don't have to answer to anybody now. You know, if I'm making art, I'm going to make some good art. And I'm going to make people excited to be around it. And in those spaces where, you know, typically only a white guy can make something out of a neon light, and then everybody's like, oh my God, it's genius. Screw it. I'm going to do it better. You know? So like I just like doing things like that where it's like, I'm just going to do it. And if somebody doesn't like it, it's whatever. Like, I like going big and going crazy with it.
I like it. We have another question. The mic is already given out.
You guys are great storytellers, but I have a hypothetical question. Since we're at TIFF and a movie palace, if you could make a movie, a full-length feature film, would it be a fiction film or a nonfiction documentary film?
Definitely a documentary film. Just as far as like the things that I've seen in the nightlife industry, I feel like the world needs to know what goes on behind the scenes, you know, in the nightclub industry.
I kind of want to know.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I would definitely do a documentary.
I think mine would be, it'd be a fiction, but it'd be a fiction. It'd be fiction, but it'd be based on real life. I really want to, my dad is a really interesting character. Like, I think he's the inventor of extra, is what I say in my family. It was like the first time my grandma met him, it was in the subway when he first came to Toronto from Jamaica. It was in the subway, and he was like in a 3-piece suit with a briefcase, and it was empty, and he was going to the mailroom to work at the mailroom at TD. Like, he's just that level of extra. And I feel like, yeah, there's some story there where he's like the origin. Yeah, there's a movie there. Yeah, I think so. It would be fiction, like kind of maybe exaggerating some parts, but based off of his life is quite. Yeah, I remember one time he just came home, like he said he wanted a convertible, and went to like a chop shop and cut off the top of his car, and just came back and like that was it. So like that's the level of extra that we're dealing with with my dad. So yeah, I think that's where the story.
My family, we come from like a family of storytellers. Like, yeah, that's my sister back there. Like, they'll tell the same story, especially like our mother and grandmother and our like aunts and uncles. It's on both sides of the family, and they just like repeat the same thing with a different inflection. So it'd be like fiction based on reality, like you said, and that way, like you like any that like can potentially be any NDA things. I don't have any actual NDAs. I mean, I have signed some, but nothing related to the people that I actually want to talk about. And it's like I love that. Like, I love when I read. To be clear, I'm not comparing myself to this writer, but I love when I read people that write fiction, but it's totally based on their life. Like someone like James Baldwin. So many of those characters are James Baldwin. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I would do that, and the characters, like my sister who's in the audience would definitely be a character in my novel / film. I'm gonna write the novel first, then make the film.
I feel like you've thought about this like
I
very
have.
hard.
Oh my
like,
gosh,
I'm gonna write a novel.
I have. Okay.
This is a good deal. I don't know. I think we were talking about game shows earlier. I feel like I would make a game show. You know what I mean? And it would be about what cultural things women are subjected to. They see women are subjected to. That is just, you know, patriarchy. So it would be like a true or false. Like they would have to pick, like, you know, getting forced into a marriage at 15, tradition or patriarchy. And they'd be like, tradition. It's patriarchy. You lose. Yes. You know? Because there's so much in our culture that's just like, don't put this on little girls. You know what I mean? So, and that there needs to be somebody to tell people, like, this used to be a culture, but this was heavily rooted in patriarchy. And let's just talk about that for a minute. And yeah, and to make it fun, obviously.
Do we have another? Yeah.
Hello, thank you for being here. And this is really awesome. I know that being a woman, we're usually the first to cut each other down and kind of knock each other down. And from your experience of all you ladies, how can you recommend a way to either bring us up or a situation that has changed your experience, that a woman brought you up and changed your life and made it for better on this International Women's Day?
I'll start. I would say, so Kelly actually taught me the phrase collaboration over competition. And it was the first I had actually like heard it crystallized. But I'm the biggest, because especially in meeting her, because when I first, a lot of the people that I collaborated with initially were Black women that also wanted to work in the comedic genre. And I just started to think that's what we all wanted to make. And it wasn't a competitive sense, but I just thought that was the pool. And Kelly makes very different work from me. And it was just the first time I realized of like, literally, I can't make what she makes and she can't make. Like, we really do have our own authentic stories to tell. No matter how much in awe I am of what she's doing, that's just not what's processing through my brain, and vice versa. And so I learned and then saw that in action, collaboration over competition. And it's literally my favorite. Like, you could probably hire me to come to your show and just like clap and cheer you on. It's my favorite thing to just go and like support people.
Special
and
hype
yeah,
woman, yeah.
No, I would totally do that as a like, or you like, I mean, like in a really random sense, like infomercials where you need that one person to be like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like I would be that person, but for your like show or what have you, just like tell me where to be, tell me what the question is to ask, what the comment is, and I'm like, what? Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, I like that you say that, because they're really, in theory, there's no need for there to be competition in that sense. And it feels really shitty when you experience that, whether someone's threatened by that. You can feel that energy like from someone, and it's really crummy. And I try to like kind of move over. I'm like, when you're ready to hang out, let me know. You know what because I also want to take on that shit, you know, like we each have our own journeys. But yeah, like I really try. I think it's very easy. I like how you brought up the ceiling thing, because it's like you can very clearly see the ceiling and who are the gatekeepers in every sort of space. And I'm not interested in kind of doing that. I mean, I don't know if it's called nepotism or I want to call it someone else, but in a way, the only reason to get into a space is like almost, like I always try to make a point to be like, I'm bringing this people, or even you asking the question to name like a woman that you think people should know. Like I try to make a point to see outside of my sight line, or like ask my friends, like who's someone that you're interested in. So then it becomes networks of affinity. That's like a constellation that's always expanding, you know, because I'm not interested in taking up space that way. And I'm not interested also in getting, because I feel like there's a performative optics as well, where people are like, I referred this person for this. And like, I'm not even interested in that shit. Like if someone asks, I've been asked to write something for a publication that maybe have already been featured in enough times, like 2 times is enough for me. And I'm like, if I'm the only Black artist who sometimes curates it, you know, that's a fucking problem. Here are some other people that you should be checking out. And I don't care if they ever know that I'm the reason why that person knows that. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to be patted on the back for doing my good deed. I think it's just like a necessity. You just do it. And like, I'm not interested in resting my laurels or being rewarded for doing the bare minimum. But yeah, I think I'm all for being a cheerleader for people. And the last thing I'll say is there's this beautiful video that I see recirculating all the time. And it's when Lauryn Hill won an award, and Whitney Houston is like losing her mind for her. And like the video makes me like cry, because I'm like, that's how it fucking should be, you know? So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
To be honest with you, I've never entertained that aspect of that social aspect. You know, if I receive, you know, if someone blocks me, I just kind of try to figure out a way around, you know. But to me, it's all karma. So it's like you give what you get back, and you treat people how you want to be treated. And, you know, I want to be treated with the most kindness, the most love, and the most respect. And the only way that I can be treated that way is if I treat other people that way. And, you know, we can always talk about how I feel like it's evolved the way women have interacted with each other over the years, especially in professional environments. You know, it used to be very catty. It used to be very, people are very territorial and stuff like that. And I find that it's changed a lot over the years. We're a lot more encouraging to each other. We're a lot more empowering to each other. And I prefer that over what it was. And I'm very, 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 very grateful for that evolution. I think we're starting to see that there's more power in numbers. And we're starting to see that, maybe men aren't as, smart as they've been, as they've been put out there for us to believe. And, and I see that time and time again in meetings. So for me, really, I really don't take that on. Same thing with you. I don't take on any negativity because it has nothing to do with me. That's something that person or that woman has to deal with on a personal. But at the end of the day, I will always show love, no matter what is being brought my way.
My answer is very simple. Whether it's doesn't matter what the gender of the person is that's bringing me down or anything. There's no lawyers involved. I don't care.
I'm dead.
Amen.
Don't care. You can be mad all you want. If you're not putting any effort behind it beyond that, then you're just angry. And you're just a big baby. So you're still gonna come to my exhibit. That's the funny part. It's like gonna come.
It's true. Haters love to show up to shit.
I saw one recently. I was like, oh my God, like I stalked your profile when you were being rude to me online. You're here now? Like what? Didn't say a word.
Yeah, no,
Didn't say a word. Lawyer up.
Lawyer up. Okay, that is actually, I was about to ask any more questions, but we are done. Thank you guys so much. This was so wonderful. Thank you for this incredible panel. Thank you for being an awesome audience. And happy IWD.